Just like with your tools, it's important to know what ingredients you're working with. But before we get into the specifics of each ingredient, there are 4 different factors that you have to consider when baking cakes and creating different flavor combinations in your cakes. The first thing to consider is flavor. This is the distinctive quality of foods or drinks perceived with the combined senses of taste, touch, and smell. Next is mouthfeel. This is the sensation created in your mouth with the combination of the food's taste, smell, texture, and temperature. This is why it is important to pay attention to the texture of your cakes. You always want a light, airy, and fluffy cake. You want to steer clear of any dense, heavy cakes with any weird or grainy textures. Lastly is taste. Taste is a sensation interpreted from the brain of what we are detecting when food and drinks come into contact with our taste buds. There are different types of taste that we need to pay attention to when making our cakes. There's salty, sweet, sour, and bitter. Now onto the staple ingredients that we will be likely to use in every cake that you make in this kitchen. First, there is the flour. Flour is the foundation of the recipe. It provides structure to your cakes and holds all the ingredients together. When moisture is added to your flour, gluten is developed, which is essential to any baked good. The gluten and protein in flour combines and form a web that traps air bubbles and sets in the cake. There are various different types of flours that have different levels of protein. It is important that you know which flour you're working with and which kind works best for the type of cake that you are making. First and most commonly used is all-purpose flour. This type of flour is made from a blend of hard and soft wheat. It is comprised of 10 to 12% protein content. Self-rousing flour is a mixture of all-purpose flour, baking powder, and salt. Then there is cake flour, which is used specifically for cakes. It is very finely milled from a soft wheat. This flour is bleached and has a very low protein content of about 8 to 9%. Next is your butter and your sugar. Butter is the best suited solid fat for baking. You want butter with a high fat content. It is also important to make sure that you are using unsalted butter. This way you can control the amount of salt that is in your recipe. Butter adds flavor, moisture, and acts as a leavening agent. Fats like butter, shortening, or oil hold everything together. The fats coat the gluten molecules and create tenderness in your baked goods. These fats also contribute to the fluffiness of your cake. Sugar, on the other hand, adds sweetness to your product. It contributes to the browning of your cake, as well as it helps tenderize the cake by preventing the gluten from forming too much. It adds texture and keeps your baked goods soft and moist. Next is your eggs. Eggs serve multiple purposes in your baking. They act as a leavening agent, as well as the yolks of an egg add fat to the mixture, providing a tender and light texture to the cake. Eggs are an emulsifier. They help break the fats into tiny little pieces and allow them to mix together. The proteins of the eggs also contribute to the structure of your baked goods because they protect the fat-coated air bubbles from collapsing. Keeping the air that you worked hard to incorporate into your batter is really important. This will help make the cake airy and fluffy. Next are your baking powder and baking soda. Baking powder and baking soda form carbon dioxide that are held by the fat pockets, gluten, and starch, which makes your baked good rise. Baking powder is a leavening agent causing cake batter to rise. It is a combination of cream of tartar and starch. Too much of baking powder in your recipe can cause a bitter taste. Too little of it can cause your batter to be too dense. Baking soda is pure sodium bicarbonate and needs to be paired with an acidic ingredient in order to work. That is all of the ingredients that you're most likely to encounter on a daily basis when baking cakes here. It is important that you know everything about these ingredients so that you can use them properly when making your cakes to get the best quality cake you can.